We are live. Good day, my crypto friends. It's a pleasure to see you today. Today we're here with Chitty from EOS Argentina. We're going to talk about some really interesting concepts as far as where EOS is going, what EOS Argentina offers as a block producer, and just dive in because Chitty's an interesting guy. So welcome to the show. Chitty, how you doing?
Hello, Brandon. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm really happy about the launch and what we've been seeing with EOS. So yeah, looking forward to our talk.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll get started here. And I thought it was interesting just to throw it out there. I just talked to Chitty. He's from Patagonia in Argentina, which is just one of those spots that rings a bell for a lot of people because it's one of those wild, beautiful spots. And it's one of the main spots people know besides Buenos Aires in Argentina all over the world. So he's out in nature and doing work for EOS and the blockchain here. So
Sure. We might even see a moose as well, like like in Sweden. We have the same kind of nature.
Yeah.
But I'm actually from the Patagonia. In EOS Argentina, we really wanted to make EOS Argentina about not just the whole of Argentina, but also Latin America. Mm-hmm. But we have to start somewhere, right? So Argentina is a place with a lot of blockchain development. You have a lot of blockchain industries here like Rootstock and Attic Labs and Signatura and so on. So it was like the place to start. But we actually have plans to build the community not just in Argentina, but other parts of Latin America. If you take a look at the block producers, we have EOS Rio, EOS Venezuela as well, and Costa Rica, and some other BPs that are fighting for a standby BP position. But there's still a lot of countries to be covered. There's still a lot of things to be done. So yeah, we have parts of, team members in different parts of Argentina.
Yeah, and I think that, like it says on your website, that Argentina has been the cradle for a lot of blockchain technology, and it is a great spot to start, a great spot to get a foothold and expand for South America down there. What do you think when people are looking at block producers, and doing their votes, what do you think is the top three criteria people should look for? What should they ask for from these block producers, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, the first one is pretty basic that maybe I shouldn't even mention, but I have seen some BPs at the beginning that struggle with some of the technical parts. And this is not, of course, I'm not saying it to, put someone down, but it's natural because it's a technology that's not widely used. Mm-hmm. So, there was a lot of training and practice prior to the launch. We had several testnets, not just Jungle, which is the main one now. We had Scholar testnet. We even launched our own testnet for practicing, and we onboarded some of the other BPs. So technical ability is, of course, the main, the first, not the main, but the first thing that you need to cover in order to be a BP, because being a BP is about producing blocks, right? In its first, instant, in nature, you need to be able to produce blocks. You need to be able to have a full RPC node and provide an API, amongst other things. But that's the main thing. Now, if they have this cover, then we can move on to other stuff. EOS Argentina is a community block producer. And when we say community, we mean that the profits that we generate will be used to promote EOS community, EOS development in the ecosystem, and of course, with a special focus in Latin America. So we really look for other BPs that are into doing community building. There is some great ones out there. EOS Detroit, EOS Venezuela, there's a lot of BPs that are actually, focused on communities. So that's something that we especially look for. And then you have dApps. dApps is not just about community building, but it's something that you will leave for the whole ecosystem, for the whole world. So if you ask me about three criteria, I would say that, you need to be technically capable. You need to have a focus on community. There's nothing wrong, of course, with companies that seek profit and they just want to produce kind of like a mining farm, but we are more focused into community building. And then you have dApp creations, because a very used dApp, and if you look at the Ethereum example, what really made Ethereum explode was the creation of dApps. Of course, I have my own personal view about how Ethereum was short on providing a really a robust network, like a really efficient network for dApps, and this is where EOS comes in. So a very popular dApp can onboard thousands and thousands of people, just like Steam did with Steam. So this is something that we really want to look at as well. We're actually in the process of not only creating our own dApps, but creating an incubator for people who have dApps and need technical support, or bandwidth, or even funds to develop those dApps. Because that's what's going to really bring EOS to mainstream.
Okay, great. So you guys are planning to support dApp builders with technical support and possibly funds, and that's one of the big things you're pushing forward. Right?
For sure. We want people to use the technology, not just speculators and traders. We want people to be able to use EOS blockchain, maybe without them even knowing. I think what Dan created with Steam is a lot like that. There's a lot of people that use Steam and they don't really even know it's a blockchain. They just know it works. So this is kind of like our main goal as well, to provide dApp builders with bandwidth, funds, and technical capabilities. Because, like I said before, there's not a lot of people that are actually, you need to be really into the ecosystems. And right now, there's not a lot of people who understand how the blockchain works, especially in Latin America. So
absolutely, yeah. And just on that note, I want to hit on this because it is important. The technical chops, everyone thinks, okay, they're block producers, they probably have the technical chops to get this done, but it's not something to be overlooked. I was just at, me and my wife actually were at the Tulip conference, and we went to the workshop, which was this past week, where they were showing us how to launch a EOS testnet. And they had Phil Messner and one of the other developers from Block One there, who have built this whole thing, and they're sitting there walking the room through how to build a test net, and it ended up taking them almost 2 days of work where they had set aside a pretty short amount of time. But even with the experts there who have done this, trying to set up a test net, it's not an easy thing. Everyone is still working through this. It's a absolute work in progress, and there's not just an easy way to do it. So when you talk about the technical chops, I mean, that's not something to be overlooked. It does take a lot of legwork to get this stuff done at that point.
And let's keep in mind that there is still a lot of updates, rolling since we launched, where we had 1.01, 1.02, 1.03 version, and now we're looking at 1.04. And sometimes the documentation for those changes, they come after normally. Changes are being made so fast. So there is like a lot that you need to be really looking in the GitHub and seeing the changes. You need to be on top of everything. So all blockchains start kind of like this, same with Steam. At the beginning, there's a lot of changes, and then it becomes a little bit more stable, and then you get documentations, even books, and then you can provide courses. This is another thing that we are really looking into. We have a course in July, like an introduction course for EOS development, and then we want to build a coding school. This is something that other BPs like EOS UK has also mentioned, but I think it's important because what we are getting right now is like there's a lot of developers, like JavaScript developers, TypeScript developers, Python developers. There's not a C++ developers, and there's not a lot of developers that understand and know how to compile and put a code into the blockchain. So this is a simple process. It doesn't have to, for a programmer, it shouldn't be like a lengthy course, but just to understand the basics of how a smart contract works and how a dApp works is another of our goals that we have, to train a lot of people so that they can spread the dApp creation across the world.
Yeah, and there is a lot of developers, and now that the blockchain is getting more popular, the developers are now reaching out and wanting to know how to learn to do this. But right now there's not a lot of resources out there. So, whatever you guys end up doing as far as education will be a huge part in pushing even the ability for the devs to make dApps forward. So that'll be a great tool. For
sure. If you look at universities, like regular universities, at least in Argentina, Latin America, they teach you computer science, and they teach you like the programming language that are known to the world. But not many courses teach you like a blockchain development and how blockchain works, and what are the benefits of building something in the blockchain as well. because it's decentralized, it's trustworthy, it's immutable. And those are the kind of principles that we also want to spread, so that people not only build stuff on the blockchain, but know why it is better to build it with blockchain technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the whole underlying part of this, and what's so interesting and why it's so important is a good message to get out there. And in Argentina, how do you see the importance of blockchain or EOS even kind of going forward for the country and for the, how it interacts with the rest of the world? I mean,
well, Argentina is mainly famous for two things. You have soccer, and then you have like financial crisis. So one is good and one not so good. So this is why blockchain development has flourished so much in Argentina, starting with Bitcoin and other currencies, because people looked for a way to, for example, send and receive money overseas, which is in the past it wasn't actually possible, and right now it's pretty difficult. We also have a lot of inflation, and our currency is very weak. We are currently we're currently seeing like a 20 to 30% drop in the last 2 weeks of our national Argentinian peso. So these things are some of the main reasons why blockchain development has flourished in Argentina, and Bitcoin is even used as a way to not only transfer wealth but also store it. In that sense, we were kind of lucky, because we have 3 guys that are top 21 witness for BitShares. So they understand a lot of the graphene technology. And we also have an environment where we have access to really good blockchain developers. You have Diego Saldivar from Rootstock. We know him personally. We have El Mato, who is a core developer for EOS. He's also in Buenos Aires. We invite him to the meetups or whatever. So this is one of the main decisions why we decided to start and put the base of EOS Argentina in Argentina. But we have been in contact, like I said before, with other VPs in Latin America, because we want to reach as many people as we can. And we know we can't do this alone. So we need to build the community, and we need to have other like ambassadors of EOS in other parts of Latin America. So all of them, they congratulated us. They are happy that we got to be a VP. I personally talked to Igor from EOS Rio as well, and we talked a little bit about the plans that we have for Latin America in the future. So it is actually really cool that we have 2 Latin American VPs in the top 21 at the moment, and we are going to use that to build the community and to further improve blockchain development in Argentina and other parts of Latin America for sure.
Yeah, and the idea of EOS or cryptocurrency being some way to stabilize, because in emerging markets where money will flow in and flow out, and these big players move money in and out of these countries, but then there's all the people there that have to deal with that. They have to deal with, like you said, the value of a currency dropping by 20 to 30%, depending on what these big players are doing. When something like EOS can stabilize that, or give people personal freedom with their capital, I think that's
for sure.
That's important. Yeah.
Let's not forget, we were also part of a team that created a smart coin in BitShares called BitRs.
Okay.
And that, in BitShares, it was like the first smart coins fully decentralized, at least that I know of, with BitUSD and BitEuros and so on. And this is something that we also plan to build further down the line with EOS, because it's not only about volatility, because like you said before, every Argentina has like 30% less money than it did a month ago if they kept it in the bank. But it's also about freedom. It's also about freedom, about being able to send your relatives in other countries money, and being able to do it like in a couple of minutes or even seconds for EOS. So this is also something that I think EOS can capitalize on, and blockchain tech, of course.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned BitShares, that you have some witnesses from BitShares, and then you're also involved in Steemit. I think something I appreciate about your team is that it's not just, you guys didn't just see this block producer opportunity in DPoS and jump on it late like some people have, but it's been a process where you have people who were in it with BitShares and then in DPoS with Steemit as witnesses and now developing here. I think there's a lot of lessons that are learned along the way. What do you see as parallels, or what are takeaways from kind of the experience with other DPoS platforms from Dan?
For sure. We are a group of guys that met firstly in BitShares. We had a BitShares meetup group in Buenos Aires. Then, of course, it was only natural to go to Steem because it was like Dan's next big project and it has so many similarities in terms of the code of the blockchain. And then, of course, when EOS came along, I just received the call and I was like, yeah, we're all in, let's do this. This is something that we actually enjoy, and this is something I really like about the team. Like, we actually enjoy doing this. Like, when we stayed until 2, 3 a.m. The other day, I remember a friend of my wife was saying, "Oh, poor your husband," So, and she's like, he loves it, He could be there all day, and I can say the same about the other guys in the team. I know that it doesn't actually even feel like work. DPoS is a really interesting platform. It's a very interesting form of democracy that you didn't have before BitShares. It provides a tool for people to decide on what they want the blockchain to be. In Steem, it was like the combination of what BitShares have with the outreach for millions of people or thousands of people. So, witnesses in Steem, they have like a lot of scrutiny, and they provide weekly reports to the community of what they're doing. If you want to receive block rewards, you need to do something that improves the ecosystem. So I think there is a lot of value to that compared to other proof of work systems where, the consensus and the production is controlled by big mining farms. Mm-hmm. You don't really know who they are or if they do something for the ecosystem. It's more profit driven. Having said that, there is still of work to be done. And what I like is that witnesses or block producers, they need to respond to the people that voted for them. So it's very important that block producers listen to their community. So that's why we are so focused on our community, because those are the guys that ultimately put you there. And having said that, every decision can be taken by this democracy system. For example, we could ask several questions like, that could have been solved in other blockchains. Like, for example, the debate with Bitcoin about increasing the block size. Mm-hmm. In DPoS, is very simple to solve, because you ask the community that have voted for you, that you represent, and then with a 2/3 majority, you could change the code in EOS to have a democratic solution for a problem that otherwise would be solved by miners and big enterprises that don't really need to ask you what you want. So it's very interesting. And, we're looking forward to having this participation, not only with other BPs, but also with the community. I think it's important to never forget that we are there because the stakeholders of EOS wanted us to be there, especially for us guys in Latin America that we don't really have a big stake. It's like our votes were like very small. So, we are very humbled by people, not only in Latin America, but in the world that voted for us.
Yeah. Having the block producers diversified around the world is really important. And that's why, I love the idea of EOS Argentina being one of the top block producers, because we need South American representation. We need strong representation for that continent. And I appreciate the fact that how you guys are humble and how you've been in the DPoS since BitShares. I think that's great. I think that having people who are really passionate about this and in it for the right reasons is important, because when I look at the decentralization or who I'm going to vote for, you have both ends of the spectrum. On your end, it's people who love EOS, who have been part of DPoS for a long time, are very humble. And then the other end of the spectrum, you have maybe something like Bitfinex, that's a giant company that's in it for the profits, and they're going to have a giant infrastructure. And I actually, no comment on Bitfinex specifically, but I think for me, the diversification of having that spectrum is important. It's important to have, representatives from all over the world and small, passionate people, and then maybe even some corporations in there to round it all out. I mean, it's interesting. It is. It's. What do you think as far as diversity goes? I know that there's a lot of talk about diversity as far as different countries goes. What other ways do you think people should diversify their votes to make the blockchain strong?
Yeah, well, I think geographical decentralization is important. We've also worked together when we had our testnet, which was for practice. We invited EOS Nairobi as well. We believe it's important to have a representative from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And what you said is really important about those BPs that are community focused, let's say, because in the emerging world, blockchain technology can really make a difference in everyday's life. There is some parts in Africa and Latin America where steamy rewards really make a difference. Some people actually live from the rewards they get from their blog, and they're really, really grateful for that.
Yeah.
So that's why geographical decentralization is a must, because we want EOS to reach as many people as possible. And if it can change someone's life, then so be it. It's very, very welcome. And that on one side. Of course, you have the technological aspect as well. You want the servers to be distributed so that everyone who wants to build in EOS has as lowest latency as possible. Of course, there you have another challenges that maybe we don't have to get into it right now, because to give you an example, the lowest latency that you can get in Latin America is if you put your data center in Miami, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we don't have the infrastructure from country to country. If you want to ping someone in, let's say, Colombia, and you're in Argentina, then that ping is probably going to go through Miami and then go back down to Colombia, and vice versa. So this is something that, it escapes probably our reach at the moment, but it is also important to have low latency. For Africa, for example, North Africa, is important to have maybe a data center in France or Italy. But maybe that's a bit more technical. I think it's also important. But I believe that community decentralization is a must, not only geographical, but also have some VPs that are community representative and not just profit driven.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the community representatives is a big thing for everyone to look at and take note of, because that's part of the beautiful thing about EOS, and why this is different is because EOS is here to help everyone in the world, not just the corporations that jump in first. EOS is here for people in Africa who are able to add value, and to be able to do that. And that's the game changer, is that people haven't been able to add their value from everywhere in the world equally. And EOS gives that opportunity. Now everyone has an equal opportunity to add some value to this big chain. And so it becomes really important that we have representatives on every continent, so that everyone feels part of it, So
for sure.
Yeah, I like that community aspect of diversity. That's a good call. Very good call. What other projects you guys up to as far as EOS Argentina? I know that you're doing content creation, I believe, in Spanish as well. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
We want to not just content creation in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
We also want to translate it to some other languages. Of course, we have representatives from Brazil, so Portuguese will be included. But we want to focus on community building and education as well. So we're actually thinking of creating dApps through an incubator. We are actually putting dates on a small hackathon that we will do in Argentina, so that we can actually get a feel of what dApps or what the community wants, mm-hmm. as well as help people who already have their own projects. We understand that we are not able to create all the dApps, but we can help people create other dApps. Mm-hmm. So if we can do that, as well as helping a startup in Latin America, which is really, really difficult, because if you go to a bank, ask for a loan, your startup is really, really difficult. our interest rate right now on banks is 40% annually. So it's pretty steep. It's pretty hard to have a startup and ask for a loan. So that's the incubator aspect is one of them. And then we have the coding school. And we're going to start with courses in Argentina and then other parts of Latin America. So those are our two main projects. We also have other projects that we are going to build, like dApps our developers are going to build because they want to do it, and I think they're going to be pretty cool. But I think maybe we can talk about them in the next show, because something that one of them told me was, don't just say our plans because someone else might just do it like tomorrow. But I believe probably next week we're going to have a little surprise for you. We're going to have a dApp that is actually being created right now. If we don't find any more bugs, which is something that comes along, we'll probably have something really cool next week.
Cool. Well, it's always good to leave a secret on the table for people watching this. EOS Argentina is working on some cool dApp, so we'll look forward to seeing what that is. That's cool.
There's another one that I can't say that we're working on, that is a transparency dApp, and this is something that we really find important, especially coming from Latin America. We want to be transparent about the resources that we use, how we use our block rewards, and we want to invite also other block producers, to be transparent, especially if they are community-based, on how they are going to use those block rewards, because it's the network. It's like the blockchain is giving you those block rewards for you to do good for the ecosystem, So we're going to have we're going to be transparent about how we expend our rewards, and we also, if we can build a cool dApp, we're also going to invite local and regional governments to use our dApp. So maybe we can help fight corruption in Latin America a little bit. I know we're going to get a lot of doors being closed in our faces, but at least we're going to be there and we're going to present it.
Yeah, and leading by example, basically setting a gold standard, I think is going to be important for block producers to do, and each block producer can kind of do it in their own way. But if EOS Argentina sets this standard of transparency and however you do that, then other block producers who aren't doing that, it's going to shine a light on them, because people can say, hey, look what EOS Argentina is going to do. That's the standard for transparency. So I think that's a really important initiative. What's that actually look like? What does a transparent representation of it? Are you talking about putting it in a chart and people can go and see each transaction?
Yeah, just being open about how many paid members we have, being open about our expenses, what we buy, what those resources go to. If we create an event, just putting it out there, not we are used to all kind of little tactics like inflating budgets and so on, because it's very common in Latin America. So we want to be the complete opposite of that, because we don't come from the politics world, we come from the community and technological world. So we want to be completely transparent so that anybody in the EOS community want to look at how we spend our rewards, they can do it. It's all in the blockchain. Every time we make a transfer, there's going to be a description to what that transfer was for. Okay. So blockchain technology is already transparent, so it provides us with a way to keep track of the transfers. We just want to add descriptions and invoices to those transfers.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's kind of the key, because it is transparent also, but it's going to be that specific description of what this was for.
Sure.
That adds the transparency.
Yeah. If you create a meetup and you said you spent 20,000 EOS in a local meetup, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, you're partying too hard at that. Yeah. And it's not only Argentina that has transparency problems with the government. I think that's pretty standard. We have a famous $150 hammers in the U.S. government, where they were like $2,000 toilets and things like that, where the prices are increasing. And if you actually look at it, you say, wait, what are they actually doing here? So
they're made from gold.
Yeah, so it's not just Argentina. That think when they're when people get large sums of money or some sort of payout without without any accountability for it. It's kind of a natural thing. So the transparency that hopefully you're going to be able to push forward and make a standard for the community is going to be really important, because without that standard, the natural direction is going to be for the money to disappear. So,
for sure.
Yeah, that's a great thought. How have you seen the voting playing out so far as block producer voting, where the votes are coming from, how they're being spread out? What are your thoughts on that at this point?
Well, I think at the beginning there was a thought that everybody was going to vote for 30 block producers, and that was going to make the list a bit more equal in a way. But what we're seeing, I think they said the average is 16 block producers. Like every account on average is voting for 16. So what we're seeing now is that there is a lot of vote concentration at the top, and that is making the network have a small number of standby witnesses. Because at the moment, for you to be a standby, you need 0.5% of the votes. And I'm actually sorry about some of the VPs. I don't or haven't made it to that threshold. You need to make 100 EOS per day to be a standby BP, because I see really, really good VPs that, they have 3 million votes, 4 million votes, and they're fighting for that spot. And it would be a shame for them to not receive a reward, because if you look at the infrastructure that they need to maintain, it's similar to the infrastructure that someone in the place 50 would need to maintain, because at any moment that can switch and you need to be prepared. So their expenses and their fixed costs are the same. But this is something, like I said before, that depots will allow us to change if we see that the votes continue to roll in like they are doing now, or maybe we will start by asking the community to vote for 30 VPs so that we can have more standbys. Having more standbys, of course, provides more decentralization and more security to the network. But this is something that is interesting about how votes have been rolling in. People are maybe not aware that you can actually vote for 30 VPs and they're voting for less. So this is something that maybe should be addressed in the future. And I know VPs are already talking in a private channel about this specific topic, about increasing the number of standby VPs. Which again is great about depot system. When something occurs, you have like a Congress, I guess, that can talk about it and see how they address it. Apart from that, I think it is always normal to have somewhat low participation in any system, because some people just want to trade and they want to buy low and sell high or whatever, and are not really interested in the mechanics and how it works or whatever. So it is also our job to promote the advantages of the system, and tell people to go on and vote. But considering that we've only been live for a very short period of time, and at the beginning there were many tools that were thought to be safe, I think we actually reached it. The threshold was reached before we thought it would be reached. We were thinking about waiting a month. I was actually looking at the computer when it happened. Someone just voted for Canada and said, let's make this live. I'm not sure who did it, but I was actually there, and I looked at all the telegrams and nobody was talking about it yet. And I was like, guys, we're live.
You're breaking the news. That's awesome.
It was crazy. It was a crazy moment. I was actually preparing a note for a jungle testnet. I was like completely doing something different, because we were still at 11%, I think, and it just went to like 16 from one hit.
It's amazing. Yeah, it caught me by surprise as well. I was thinking, we'll wait another day or two, and wasn't too paying attention. And all of a sudden I got onto Twitter or something and it was just blowing up finally. It's like, oh my gosh.
For sure.
That's a really interesting point that you're talking about, though, with the amount of backup block producers. So how many block producers and backup block producers is there currently?
I think currently we have 21 block producers. And I think we have 29 or 30. I would have to look at the list and see if we moved 29 or 30 standbys. Okay. There are different ideas about this, but I think it would be ideal to at least have 42 standbys. So you got like 2 sets of block producers in case, which is very, very unlikely, but in the case that all top 21s, they got their node, a DDoS attack, and which again is unlikely considering the infrastructure that top 21 VPs have. But in the worst case scenario, if it happens, then you have like 2 sets of standby VPs ready to produce. And then that brings us to another subject, which is how do you prove that a standby block producer is able to produce if they're not actually currently producing? So you just have to trust their word. So there is some processes that we proposed this morning to see if we can manually check their API and check that they are there, and run a script regularly to see if they are reachable. So that's another important thing, because at the moment it's the only way to check that a standby producer has his full node available.
And that would be important too, just to prevent some low-level spam as well. If someone's spinning up a node temporarily and then taking it down and collecting block rewards standby rewards somehow. So
for sure.
Yeah, I think that is really important. I like the idea of having 2 full sets. Probably each set of redundancy exponentially decreases the vulnerability of the chain. So I think that those 2 full backups is a great idea. And it doesn't seem like in the big picture, it doesn't seem like it would take that much extra resources. We're getting a lot of security for the minimum amount of resources that it would cost to have the bigger backup.
Sure. Our proposal would be to take the extra resources from the current, top VPs. It wouldn't require extra inflation. It would just be, I think I did the maths this morning, and it wouldn't actually have a big impact if you kind of like tax or whatever the top VPs to fund another set of. We only need like 13 more standbys to have the full sets. So it's not actually something that will impact the community or impact the top VPs on paying their infrastructure.
And to be a standby VP, you need to generate how many? 100 EOS per day? Is that right?
At current moment, you need to generate 100 EOS per day, which is roughly 0.5% of all votes. Okay. We could move that threshold down to 0.3% or 0.25%, and those block standby will still produce around 50 EOS per day, which I believe it's enough to have like a full node, a full RPC. And I think what's important to consider here is that those standbys that are close to being or those VPs that are close to being a standby, they still need to pay for this because they could become a standby VP at any given time, because the voting and the elections are like constant. It's not something that stops. You could even change your vote at any time. So the idea is that they are able, even by eventually reaching those standby points, to pay for the infrastructure. And I think that can be achieved with like 50 to 75 EOS per day. Of course, the price of the EOS is something that we need to keep a close eye on. No?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And just the thought, I mean, this is the way for us to have a continuous decentralization, is to have enough standbys, because if there's not enough standbys, if it's a small number and we're looking at 40 something block producers in total, and then there's kind of a disincentive for people to break in because it's going to cost them money. So, I can see a few years down the road not having enough standbys, kind of having this self-fulfilling prophecy where we have these top block producers that are just there and there's not ways for other people to break in. Whereas if we have them as standbys, a large pool of standby that's always there, hopefully that stays more decentralized over time. So I think that's an important issue you're bringing up.
For sure. There is also other ways that we can help other standby producers or PPs that are not, because we also want to help to, like I said before, build EOS community everywhere. So, just to give you a quick example, we want to do a hackathon, and maybe there is a BP from Colombia, for example, that presents us with a dApp from the community that they want to build, we could actually use our resources to bring them to the hackathon and see the ideas, etc. So we're actually thinking of collaborating not only in our, as our BP, but we want to collaborate with other BPs, especially those BPs that they make it through the list, but they're doing a great job. And especially if they are, maybe going at it even at a loss. Like in crypto, we've all done maybe with other projects, when we created the smart coin bid house, we did it because we liked it, and after we thought it was fun, and we dedicated our time to just building an open source project that is there for the community to build. And there is still people that do that, and we want to actually support them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's good. And the community building seems to be a theme with EOS Argentina, and that's one of the big themes that I love about EOS in general. So I think that's cool. As far as governance goes, and what have you seen lately in EOS governance, that anything that sticks out to you, any things that you think need to be amended at this point?
Well, I think that having an arbitration process is great. It's something completely new. Also having a constitution. What we are talking now is how you can, enforce that constitution. There's been a lot of talk about a BP that didn't have his URL, doesn't have a website or whatever. So it's like that is against the constitution in some way, because a BP needs to be transparent about who they are and their information and so on. So that is just one example of how the arbitration process could be used. I am sure this will be solved, but it's something that you don't have this, the blockchains. We're building something completely new. It will, of course, take time, but as long as we have a strong community and VPs that represent that community, and let's never forget that we are representing the EOS community, I think there are ways to solve conflicts, which is basically what I think Dan's vision is regarding governance. It's always having a pacific, non-violent way to resolve conflicts. And I think if we abide by those principles, we could really build something cool.
Yeah. That's the thing that's setting EOS apart from everything else. And also with the governance, it gives that opportunity on top of DPoS to be even more nimble. We can change more quickly because we have the intent built in now, as opposed to the code is law, where, well, we meant to do this, but we accidentally coded it this way. We're stuck. Now that intent we're able to enforce with the Constitution, which I think is really important. And so that'll be a cool change as well. How about, what do you think about worker proposals? Because I know that you're talking about going out into the community a lot and helping out these startups and kind of doing incubator type things. How do you think worker proposals will play into that?
Well, worker proposals are great. They are an idea that at the beginning it really worked well in BitShares, and then it wasn't translated. It wasn't taken to Steam, and that was a shame, because like I said before, there's only 51 VPs that are getting rewards, so you can't expect the VPs to do absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. There are some other things that need to be taken care of, and those things could be even in the code, because we have an open source code that was provided to us by B1, but in the future we need a blockchain that is self-sustainable. We don't know, the blockchain needs to be bigger than Block 1. It needs to be bigger than any BP in particular. It needs to be able to self-sustain itself, and that's where work proposals come in. If there is a work to be done, blockchain can actually pay for that work. You don't need an entity, a centralized entity that hires you to do a certain job. So that's what is completely great and innovative about work proposals, that it would allow us to completely free ourselves from any centralized entity or any single developer. So We'll see how it plays out. In Bitches, there were a couple of examples, a couple of cool things that were built. People that worked a lot in Bitches and got paid by the blockchain. We actually got a work proposal in Bitches, a couple of work proposals funded, part of the members of our team that are witnesses there. So they understand the process quite well. And another cool thing is that all projects are voted upon, and so the community actually has to look at the project, and you need to pitch your project to the community so that it gets approved. So that's like another layer of democracy that we have. It's not the VPs deciding on what we think should be done. It's like everybody voting on what should be approved or not.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear how that is going to work. So with your experience with you guys and your team pushing forward a couple worker proposals in BitShares, what's that look like on the, say someone that's watching this is interested in doing a worker proposal? What's the actual process look like for someone possibly submitting it and then that getting voted on? How's that look?
Yeah. That is a great question, and maybe later I can refer you to some old links to when we used to push work proposals in BitShares. The first thing you need to do is like create a project, much like any project, and then instead of you pitching it to like a VC fund, you will pitch it to the entire EOS community. So you will need to go to Reddit, Steemit, and other places for the community to hear you out, and you need to present your project and then defend it when people ask you questions and stuff. And then that project will be voted upon by the EOS stakeholders. So it's a lot like working and pitching a project to a VC. You will be actually be pitching it to like the whole EOS ecosystem. So it's actually really cool, and it's really gratifying when you get your work proposal approved, because you feel like you're doing something that the people actually want.
Yeah.
It's not something that you are doing and then waiting to see if it's going to have adoption, because you already have the approval of all the EOS active users.
Wow, yeah, that's really powerful. That'll be great to see some of the ideas that people come up with to improve EOS. How far along is that at this point? Are they accepting worker proposals now, or where's that at?
Not at this point. We're talking about probably inside 6 months area. Mm-hmm. Hopefully a lot sooner. But it's something that is still being, let's remember, we only just launched yesterday, so this is something that is still being worked upon. But it is really, really exciting, and I really want to see how it plays out, for sure.
Yeah, and it's done well. It sounds like in BitShares, and I've also seen it in Dash.
It's something that has been done. We want to do it right, so it's like it can be done, and it will be done. It's not like a crazy idea that that's being proposed. Dan has already done this; it's already working on other platforms. But like everything, and this is something I really like about the PPs, there's a lot of scrutiny in the code of whatever is being launched, and that is also why we took so much time validating the chain and making sure everything was like spot on. So I'm really proud of all of the PPs that participated in the validation process, and that are actually currently participating in, going meticulously in the code, like checking everything that is working. So you can be assured that when it launches, it will be spot on.
Yeah, and that was an amazing thing to watch as far as the launch of EOS goes. The coordination globally was amazing. It was blowing my mind. I actually, we were at the Tulip conference when they came to the 100% consensus of how to launch, and but just seeing, people were literally in a circle, all working on their computers, talking and then having meetings internationally, and it was just, there's a really impressive amount of coordination, and because of how the incentives are lined up, it's just it's stunning when you think about it. So I'm sure that the worker proposals will be done nicely, well thought out, like a lot of the other things we've seen examples of.
For sure. And I just want to give a big thanks to Dave from EOS New York and Alex and Mark from EOS Canada, because they did a great job at bringing the community together coordinating. It wasn't always easy. You know, I just think that when you are in your workspace or even in your house, it's hard to, you know, determine if you want to eat pizza or hamburgers in one day. Imagine the whole BP community from all over the world, you know, deciding on how the launch should have been done and how the validation should have been done. It was like like a lot of work, and those guys did, you know, amazing job calling the meetings and, you know, guiding the whole process. Also, David Moss did a great job there, and Thomas Cox was involved in, like, he's still involved, like, in organizing the BPs, you know, and the deciding process, which is really, really not easy. There's a lot of voices here. The calls needed to be translated to Chinese. They needed to be done at a certain time so that most of the people would be online and available. It was really hard work, and I'm really happy and I'm proud of all the BPs that participated.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a beautiful community effort, and it's great to see it and see it continue here. So as far as EOS Argentina, we talked about a lot of community outreach, meetups and content, and doing incubators for dApps and having a technical chops as far as getting this done goes, being part of the DPoS community since BitShares and doing this out of a passion for the community. We talked about decentralization of having these nations all over the country or all over the world represented. Is there anything that we kind of glossed over as far as EOS Argentina goes that you want to, any more of your message you want to get out there to people? Anything we missed?
I think it is important, like for EOS Argentina, it's like we've been talking, you know, during this interview. It's mainly about community and building an ecosystem that is actually used and can change people's life. You know, we don't want a blockchain that is not actually used. We don't want a blockchain for, you know, speculating on tokens. We want to, you know, we want to reach people and say, hey, I'm using the blockchain. I don't even know it. I think I am actually quite humbled by the Venezuelan Steam community, for example. You know, those guys, you know, it changes their life, everyday life. You know, they are living out of the block rewards, and so many other people. And this is what we want to achieve with EOS as well. That maybe it is something that you plant the seed now and you don't actually see it. But if you educate someone to program in C++ and develop smart contracts in EOS, maybe he will be 19 years old now. Maybe when he's 25, he will land a good job and help, you know, his country achieve something bigger. So being from a third world country, we have that in our head a lot. Like, you know, how can we improve the place we live in? How can we help others? And so on. So that is our main value proposition, to say that way. And it's what we're going to stick to.
Well, I think that's a beautiful thing, and that is a wonderful way to represent the EOS community as a whole. And, you know, we're all in this together trying to do important things. So I really appreciate what your team's doing, Chitty, with EOS Argentina. And there you have it, my crypto friends. And don't forget, EOS Argentina alluded to a awesome project they're working on that they can't tell us about now, but in the future, look for that popping up from EOS Argentina. And until next time, my crypto friends, we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
The money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is just